So before we get into some of the clips, we've obviously lost one of the GA greats, Séamus.
Yeah, so obviously everybody knows the news, the sad news that Muircheartaigh has passed away at 93. It's hard to imagine the GA in present day without what he has brought to it. And him before him, Mícheál O'Hare, who was his kind of forebear. The fabric of the game includes Mícheál Muircheartaigh, and it's lovely. I woke up this morning. There's the tributes that are pouring in to his greatness. Everybody has a story, from the north of the country to the south of the country, the east to the west. Literally everybody has a story about Mícheál Muircheartaigh because everybody's met him.
I was going to say everyone has a picture with him as well.
Yeah, exactly. So he came to my school. The Féile na Gael was in Limerick in, I think it was 1996.
Yeah.
I was in primary school, and I was in fourth class or third class, and he came. Coca-Cola was sponsored Coca-Cola Féile na Gael, but Mícheál Muircheartaigh came to my school, and it was the biggest thing. It was enormous. And he did this to, I think, in the county of Limerick, and he's done in other capacities and other programs. But he went to, circa 25, 30 schools in Limerick to kind of in the build up to the Féile. And that was at a time when, he gave and he gave and he gave of himself to the game. Like, everybody has a story because he got out there. He was on he went out and met the people. Like, he's an inspirational man.
It's funny that we were obviously at the Offaly Cork match, and we were kind of chatting at the sideline, and we met Dr. Khan. And I was to you, and I was kind of saying, like, if the GA was a person or people, like, Dr. Khan is one of those people, because everybody knows Dr. Khan, and it's no different than Mícheál. Everybody knows him, and when they think about him, they think about GA. So if somebody embodies the GA, it's people like Dr. Khan and Mícheál. And like
the very best of the GA.
That's huge losses, like, to the association.
Yeah, no, it's like everybody had their story. Like, because he presented me my first All Ireland medal in St. Flannan's when we won the Hogan Cup, the All Ireland Schools Cup. So we beat Kearns in the final. Richie Hogan, where's Richie? Is Richie? Mícheál came and presented the medals, and like, if you couldn't pick someone more, like, with greater stature in the game to present me my first All Ireland medal. I was blown away by his gravitas and his presence in the room, making a speech. And when he makes a speech, he's able to recall games, people, players, scores that are all tailored and relevant to this moment. He was able to tell us about previous Hogan Cup winners. He was able to tell us about previous players who had gone through the schools competitions and gone on to greater things. Just an incredible person. And
like you said, time for people. Like, he always had time for people. It didn't matter if you met him on the road, walking up Jones Road to Croke Park, or you met him anywhere. It was always a chat, a conversation. Where are you from? What are you doing? Are you still playing? How's that going? That type of thing. And like, he never seemed to be in bad form.
However he managed it. I've been a Kerry man in Dublin, but it's and even like think of the fact that he trained the Kerry senior football Kerry teams that were winning All Irelands in the 70s and 80s.
He did a lot of Dublin like based Kerry lads, didn't he? For
exactly right. The Dublin based Kerry footballers. Like, what? Like, how many arrows are in your quiver? Like, he could do pretty much anything he wanted.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Arieste Griven.
Hello and welcome to Gaago Analysis Show. We're now on episode 9, and we've only 2 more episodes left, unfortunately, Séamus. Very, very, very sad face. Obviously, over the weekend we had 2 quarterfinals with Clare winning by 12 and with Cork winning by 5, which leads us into only 4 teams left, which means things are really heating up.
Yeah, listen, I was overall disappointed by the weekend, right? The way the two games set up, I was expecting more from Wexford, and Dublin brought it. It's just they just couldn't keep it close. So yeah, we're down to the final four. Or the final four we probably expected to after the provincials. But yeah, no, it's Kilkenny versus Munster. That's the way it's set up.
And you know what? It's I think you called it last week on the show. You more or less said that this was going to be the outcome of the weekend, and you were right. Which means then we have obviously Kilkenny playing Clare on the 6th, which is the Saturday. I think it's at 3:00, and then on the Sunday it is Limerick and Cork. I think that's at 4:00. So 2 days.
Good job. You remember?
I think I'm trying to like push away the old age, but we won't go there. But leaves to be two like kind of semi-finals with a bit of buzz.
Two dingers, right? And to be it's class the way it's setting up. Like Clare want redemption from this Kilkenny saga. As much as they played Limerick
three years in a row, is that?
Yeah. So like as much as I think that's kind of slowly gone under the radar. Like as much as they played Limerick the last 3 years, they've played Kilkenny just as much with negative results.
Yeah.
1 year they didn't bring it at all. Last year they brought it, and only for like magic from Murphy inside goals. That's a Peter Duggan goal, and Clare are actually marching on. So like to me, it's very intriguing. I think, and Clare tee up well after the Wexford game. I think a lot of the cobwebs and the bad taste that they had to shake off the Munster final, they shook it off, and it was a good game to do that. And I think they're well set up to challenge Kilkenny. That's it. I think Kilkenny are absolutely humming, and they've got everybody fit. And if Owen Cody and Adrian Mullen are playing as well as they did 2 weeks ago, well then I think they're trouble for anybody. So it's set up really well. And then the Cork Limerick game on the other side, Cork are shoe-in.
I was waiting for it. I didn't expect it to come on like that early, but okay,
there's no chance. Limerick might as well stay at home.
That's a good kind of way to start out the program, isn't it? To say that Cork have won before we even go up there.
I know, but like on a serious note,
it was probably the Cork game in Park 3 was probably against Limerick was one of the best games of the season so far.
So the season, it was one of the best games. It was one of the best games the last 6 years. Like there's no doubt, it was just an incredible game, and being there, it was unbelievable being there. But basically, right, the Cork public are psyched. Anybody from Cork you talk to, they're like, "Ooh, Limerick will be scared now. Limerick will be worried." I generally don't think Limerick are worried about anybody, right? And that's my line, and I mean that.
That's not arrogance.
It's the reality. No, because like all this. Can you remember when you were playing, right? And you're saying you need to have confidence to be able to win, but you can't fluff. You can't make up confidence. It has to be based on performance, results, something. It has to be based on something. And Limerick's confidence is rock solid. Okay, so there's no doubt. This year even more so than last year, where their performances leading up into the All-Ireland semi-final were okay. This year they've actually produced in the championship in the round robin. They've produced in the Munster final when it counted. They've got new guys contributing. So Limerick are okay. And no matter who came through that draw, I think they'd be well set. But Cork love this Limerick matchup, I think. Yeah. I think, and I don't know what you think, but we'll go through it. We'll go through the clips, and there's a couple of reasons why I think Cork will fancy that what they did against Limerick is repeatable. It's going to be hard to repeat what they did, but there's a couple of things that they keep doing over and over again, and they did it in third gear against Dublin at the weekend.
Okay, so we'll get stuck into it. So I was very impressed this year with Wexford. I got to see him a lot.
Overall,
yeah, like in some, like when we put everything together, I thought Wexford were really impressive, and I thought they've really, really good hurling and coached very, very well. I was slightly disappointed by just some of their decisions the weekend and why they moved away from what they were so good at. It appeared they had a very nice plan put in place, and they just kind of reverted away from it. So like my first one was Wexford's style of play would say what we're used to and what they got a lot of success from, but then like their change in tack over the weekend and how basically it didn't result in success against Clare. So if we can remember, and I'm just going through some of the clips from the Kilkenny game because they're probably the more obvious ones. So we spoke before a couple of weeks ago about the platform that they could put Damien Reck and other players into. So we can see this is where Wexford dominated the first half in Nolan Park. And it was on the basis that They gave the ball back to Damien Reck. Damien Reck looked up, crossfield ball into Conor McDonald. Now, the key thing here is there's room inside, but it's the actual angle of the ball he's given in. It's not a loopy ball. It's a crossfield ball, but it's arrowed. So when he's going to get the ball, he's actually in possession of the ball because he knows where it's going to. Yeah. And they got a lot of success. They were really, really impressive against Antrim doing it in the first half as well, and got a lot of success. Keane Byrne was excellent. But this is it didn't do as well. So we can see this is the goal that Conor McDonald got in Nolan Park in the first half. Conor McDonald was positioned on the D, like on the square, on the 6 yard out. We can see when he's under this ball, he's standing. So he's actually not jumping up trying to catch the ball. What he's trying to do is plant his feet and let the ball fall into his hand. The reason because the low trajectory of ball allows him to stand and basically wrestle. Unfortunately, they slightly got away from that the weekend.
Yeah.
Nick is hitting the ball here from about 30, maybe 35 yards out, which allows then Clare to set up because he's going from so deep. But even if we look at the strike is a loopy strike up. So if it's loopy, it's taking longer. And people will say it's only a second or two. But the distance here will be very easily seen in how quick Colin can get back. So the ball is looped up. Here you see Adam Hogan here with Conor McDonald, who they probably felt they had a height and probably strength and experience too. Yeah. Ball goes up. You can see at the top there, the zoom, just where the centre sign is. The ball is popping. Adam Hogan is actually pulling before the ball. And that's actually a smart thing to do. And we're talking milliseconds. We're not talking pulling when the ball is the other side of the pitch. We're talking milliseconds. So he can break the ball in behind and get back to the ball. We can now see that if Conor McDonald did catch the ball, Conan was actually on the 21 by the time that would have been caught. So he's back there. Also, if we saw that picture, or that 21, like he's not a goal threat on the 21. Okay, here's another ball out. We see that Lee Moe gets the ball here in his own 45. He literally gets the ball and he turns without really looking and he strikes the ball with a lot of height on it. Okay, so it's going away from into the corners, low trajectory, winning the ball and then taking it on to now being probably like maybe 14 or 15 yards away from goal under a high dropping ball, which is ultimately a backs ball, with the likes of Conor Cleary, John Conlon getting back under the ball also. Again, same thing here. Conor McDonald is trying to get up. Adam Hogan is smart enough that he put his hand over one of the shoulders so he can't jump and get the ball and break it in behind him. Wide ball.
And you know that's a coaching point. So you know basically we are going to do that today when Liam McGovern, a guy who's normally ball in hand, carry, when he didn't even look at the 15 yards of space in front of him. And so, like, that's obviously something they decided we want to do this today. This is an area of Clare that we've looked at. We've identified that there are two cornerbacks. Well, actually, I would say it's actually mainly Conor McDonald and Hogan. The fact that if he was on Conor Cleary, they don't do that, in my opinion. So this is something they decided they wanted to do. And, you know, teams can do that. We decided we want to do this, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And unfortunately, it didn't work that day.
But, like, the one thing is, I know they were down a man, and we won't get into that because it's actually been well traversed over the last few days. But in the last 5 minutes of normal time, and if you include also whatever, like the 4 or 5 minutes of added time, they had 6 balls that they put into the box, and not one of them ended up in a score. Yeah. Okay, so when we think back to their style of play early on, and you take away this match, it was into the corners, create opportunities and create scores. And ultimately, goal threats will result in that because if you're into the corner, you have the likes of Liam Oak run through the middle that you can put the ball to. Okay, Thurles is a wide pitch. But it didn't happen. So maybe if Wexford went with their traditional, hit it into the corners, into Keane Byrne, I thought Keane Byrne had a fantastic first year. I thought he's an excellent player.
Yeah.
Hit the ball into the corners to him, to Conor McDonald, and then if the opportunity arises, you then hit the ball in. Like, this is literally, I'd say, so frustrating for Wexford people at large because the last 5 minutes was like lumping the ball in.
And but in fairness, right, it's a trap because again, when you're down multiple scores, and I mean talking about so they were down 3 goals at that stage. Do you think the goals are the only thing that will get back into you? Get you back into the game? But if you actually watch any game in the last 3 years, Limerick have had multiple 8 and 9 point deficits that they have overcome. And it wasn't goals that they overcame with nine times out of 10. Like, it's funny, if I go back to 2018, when we played Cork in the All-Ireland semi-final, we were 7 points down in the last 5 minutes of the game, and we didn't score a goal.
That's right.
It was point, and it was a Nicky Quaid save on the other end that actually. So if you can stay disciplined in those situations, it's very hard. But for Wexford now, and I know down a man and everything, but like getting away from what you do well, never. I don't know if anybody's had a good result of it. Like, unless it's a fluke, and you can't be chasing flukes.
It's so frustrating because I watched again a lot of Wexford's play, and I was very impressed. I thought they were so well coached. Keith Rossiter has done an excellent job in a very short period of time, and they seem to really enjoy. They seem to have the players to play that system.
But losing O'Connor after 30 minutes, you can't overstate how much. Like, so that was it level? Lee had scored the penalty.
Yeah.
Just before halftime, it was level, and you can't overstate the loss at that stage, because especially a player who had really upped his performance, had won frees in the first half, had scored. Anyway,
but the one thing about it is, though, like when he was even on the field and it was 15 on 15, they still didn't try the ball to the corner where they were getting success all year. Like, and that for me was probably a bit of frustration, because I know Wexford are good, and most teams know Wexford are good, and they're good at the platform, into the corner, low trajectory ball. Conor McDonald, Keane, or whoever may be, Lee, get the ball, shoot over the bar. And when the goal opportunities come on, like we saw it against Kilkenny, it's then you take them.
Yeah,
they just weren't on.
Yeah, because if you're building a game plan, and Cork earlier this year is a very good example of it. They built a game plan versus Limerick where they went direct down the middle, but that's not all they did. They didn't just go solely long down the middle and get breaks. Now they've got great success off of it, but they sprinkled it in on top of other stuff that they were doing well anyway. And to me, if you're going with, basically we're going to try this today, you can try a long ball in on top of Conor McDonald, but don't lose every other direct ball and low trajectory ball into the full forward line process. That's what cost them. And
listen, this actually feeds into my second kind of set of clips. And I can understand and I can kind of justify in my own head why Wexford did this. So they probably felt that they have aerial threat of Conor McDonald and Lee Chinwood in there very early on. I think when the ball was thrown in, he was straight into full forward. But they probably felt like that they had an opportunity to go at Clare and go at him early. So the justification is there. So like if we look at this, for instance, right, this was the penalty for Paddy Fitz, right? The last few minutes, this was like a draw game now. Okay. So high ball in, they felt that Cleary was probably a bit, I wouldn't say of an outlier in sense of getting the ball, but they felt like they had the opportunity there to try and win aerial possession and maybe get at Quilligan early. Like, and this is reason why. So if we look here, like this goal changed the dynamic of this game. So a poorly hit ball that should have been very easily cleared out of the way by either Cleary or Quilligan on the goal. And also when you look back over previous matches in the league against Waterford, young Sean Welch caught the ball on the left-hand side of Welch Park in front of Cleary and literally just ran around him and it got a goal. So, like, there is justification for what they tried to do against Clare. But I wonder if they went with their traditional mainstream play early on and then taking the opportunities to get them thinking. Would that be more?
To me, those clips, and there's actually a few more actually because Clare have conceded a fair few number of goals this year. Kilkenny are going to be very interested in that. So, because TJ will flash up on the edge of the square at some stage on Conor Cleary. And if it's not TJ, it'll be.
It could be a Walter Welsh coming on. It could be anyone like
Walter. It could be so like there is something to be said there. But both of those balls were in the large box or the small rectangle. So like you can't. Where we talked about this last week when we put our academic hats on and the closer you are to goal. But genuinely, if you put that ball close in front of the goal and ask questions, well then I think you can be very interested in that approach.
Yeah. You were happy enough with Clare's performance after the Munster final?
Yeah. So basically, like, remember we talked about it after the Munster final. We basically said, so when a team is off, when they're not sharp, what does it mean, right? And at the time, I thought it was decision making. It was kind of sluggish use of ball. It was, instead of working the ball through the lines, they went long, that kind of stuff, right? And did wides as a result of it. So I picked out a few clips of Clare kind of getting their mojo back, and this is the antidote. This is the medicine for what they suffered in the Munster final, and I think that's why this weekend was so good for them. So, like, here we have the ball down at Malone, super game all day, and again, a lot of what he does is unseen. Duggan, through the hands, super quick. Tony over the bar, no delay. Everything is quick. Ball through the hands, I thought was super by Clare at the weekend. And I hear Tony gets balls from Rogers straight away, bang. No dilly-dallying, no wasting time. I thought Shanahan was excellent.
Brilliant.
And Fitzgerald off the shoulder. So when you're talking about energy isn't running. Energy is actually quick decision-making. But when you actually make decisions quick, it makes the running effective. Look at this. Tony, or Shanahan comes out the field, and Tony's a direct run in. And look how many Wexford players he takes out by this run, right? So Shanahan's after doing really well by bringing the ball out the field and not shooting and making a bad decision. Tony takes it at pace. The angle is perfect. You're not going to touch him. And he's gone in there. And on another day where he's more hungry, or if Rogers is inside him or Shane O'Donnell is inside him, that's a goal. It also brought me to thinking, getting Tony out around the middle of the field for me is an absolute tonic for Clare. I think he's so effective out there. I think that's where they will get the most out of him, because that's the run off the shoulder. He scored the point from the pass from Duggan. He's got that. He's got both those strengths, and getting him up and running and integrated into the game again. And this is a really good example of why the Munster competition is one competition. It's over. It's gone. What was done in that Munster competition is now in the history books. The All-Ireland competition is here now for Clare. And if they can park all the conversation about the chances they've had in Munster, it's not relevant for this competition. Their prep for the Kilkenny game, for me, is fast movement of ball, the space they created for their full forward line, do that again. And that, the running off the shoulder, that's easy when you know the ball has been transferred quickly, because otherwise the energy you spend running is wasted.
But also the type of ball they're getting to their forwards is absolutely fantastic. Like, as you said, they're zipped. So, like, even those the clips you showed there, Tony Kelly hitting the ball into Shanahan, that is him running at full tilt, and it literally landed in his hand. Like Shane O'Donnell on the sideline there, hitting the ball in again, another ball, absolutely fantastic ball, fast ball in. Very difficult as a back to try and get out and win.
But also, it helps the forwards, because when you're decisive from your platform, your half back line, your midfield, when you're decisive and you say, and as a forward, you're like, okay, that ball's going to come in quick. You make your run based on the ball is coming quick, not the ball is delayed. Now, we talked about Huggy last week, delaying and kind of doing 1, 2, 3 runs. That's fine, and you'll get space if the person hitting the ball has that much time. But for me, Shanahan was a really good inclusion over McCarthy. Nothing McCarthy's done has been particularly wrong, but it is trying to find something different for the new competition they're playing in. And to me, then it was worth the exercise.
Yeah, so that actually teased me up. That actually did really nicely to the McCarthy situation, right? He probably didn't have his best day in the Munster final on freeze.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it affected his other play, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the key thing here, right? And this is not, my next clips are not necessarily like a piece of analysis. It's more of the importance of good free taking. Now, Donald Burke for me is probably one of the best forwards in the country. Yep. So this is not like a dig or anything at him as a player. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I watch a lot of Nafina games. I have a relation up there that plays. So a caveat to this, the key point, free takers coming down the stretch are so important. Okay, so within the first 20 seconds, Dublin had a free.
Yeah.
And that's their 65. Okay, so we're not talking an incredibly difficult free. It's in the middle of the pitch. It's wide. Now, the first one, in fairness, right, you can say, grand, look, we're warming up. We're trying to get a feel for the game, right? He missed 3 other frees after this one, 4 in total, okay? that has huge implications on everybody else, particularly when you're working so hard to try and get either a free or to get a score. When your free taker is not on song, it's a difficult one, because the first 3 frees they missed would have resulted in a draw game. And also it would have meant that Cork would have been 15 points to 13 up rather than 15 points to 10 up at half time. And that's a very different argument at that stage. Yeah. It took Dublin to the 50th minute for them to change their free taker after 4 frees. I thought Curry was absolutely fantastic, and he done a really good job on the frees. And now that opens the conversation to when do you actually change the free taker? You are far more experienced and intellectual than me, Séamus, so I'll leave that question for you to answer.
We're proving your argument here with a Sean Curry free from the 21.
But after that, he was decent, in fairness.
So I give you 100%
myself now. Come on.
I give you 100% from the 21. But the point stands, right? Take out Donald Burke, right? And insert Lee Chin, right? Take out Donald Burke, put in Tony Kelly in the last couple of years. So this has been a thing when your established free taker is either too much a part of the actual team makeup with Lee, right? Because I thought Lee prior to this year I thought he was very inconsistent as a free taker, and I didn't know if they should stick with him. But then he turned out this year and he actually hurled out of his skin. Free taking was so on point. He'd figured out his routine and his mechanics. I thought he just did really well. But then Tony, I think, will benefit ultimately. He hit the long freeze the last day against Wexford for Clare, and then Rogers hit the inside one. So I like that mix, because if you've got 2 good free takers, your question of when do you change, it actually becomes a little bit easier, because if you're just taking the inside freeze, then take the inside freeze that are easier. If the outside ones aren't working. It's because, for argument's sake, if Dermot Burns is having a particularly bad day, Aaron Gillane comes out and hits 65. It's not Dermot Burns.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for this 2 free taker approach of 65 line out, further out you have a free taker, and inside you have a free taker. Unfortunately for Donald Burke, it just give me an example of one of these games for him in the last couple of years. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I think he's normally very dependable. And it kind of leads into what I'm talking about. Dublin had a bad Leinster final. We talked about the good things they'd done in Leinster before that Leinster final, and that I thought it was a bit of an aberration, that it wasn't what they'd done previously, that I felt that they were going to push Cork. And what you've just shown is 4 or 5 points that they left behind just from place balls. I found a good few clips, right? Dublin, there was no way there was as much of a gap between Cork and Dublin as there was. So this is Sean Curry. This is decision making, right? So if we're talking about where do we want to take our shots from and shot percentages, decision making all day, Dublin, they were a little bit off. And here's evidence of they're well in this game, right? And they were confident in what they were doing. All right. So Conor Burke, we've got power here in the middle of the field. We've used the ball really, really well up to this point. Just the last choice, the last decision. We've hand passed the ball up to that point of the field. We need to finish at the upper end of the field. O'Donnell was immense for me, right? I thought he was class. Cork winning that game wasn't because of their full forward line. And in Dublin losing it definitely wasn't. So we get the ball out to the middle of the field again for Dublin, and we've options across the field where our numbers are. Instead, we work it to where 5 Cork players are converging now on top of power, and we've turnover ball. It's just Dublin regularly made decisions that took their good use of ball and their ability to win ball. Like Conor Burke has won that ball, and then he does that. He just gives it up so cheap. And not only did he give it up cheap, but it's a goal chance now. It wasn't a point chance. It was a goal chance. So these all stacked on top of each other, where they had ball in hand. There was nothing in the game in the first half, and even in the second half, they could have worked their way back into the game. There was no way there was 9 points between the teams. This is at the beginning of the second half, where you got Sutcliffe gets on the ball, all the play is moving towards him at that side of the field, and he's hit this before, but when you hit this, it has to go over when you're shooting from that area of the field, and that's why it's such a low percentage shot. But watch Collins; he doesn't even blink. out the field, and because all the play had moved towards Sutcliffe at the far side, that's not Crummie's fault. Like that, because everything had gone over. Decky Dalton can stand, and so you're after missing on one end, and you're after scoring here, you're after conceding a score. And I think so many of Cork's scores were easy, and that's why I say they weren't out of third gear, because again, time and time again, Dublin won ball, they got it to a point in the field, working the ball through the hands really well. Crummie this time, and here we have Brian Hayes. Like there's no pressure on him. Like that has to go over. And for me, half time, Dublin should have been ahead. There shouldn't have even been a difference between the two. And then before you know it, in the second half, Cork had opened a 9-point advantage. So it's just when all of these stack on top of each other, when I look at how much did Dublin use their full forward line, very little. So here we have, I think it's Grogan here in the middle of the field. He passes the ball across to Conor Burke, again standing to strike, but he looked inside and there was nothing. So Dublin being able to get the ball to the middle field is fine, but then when you have the ball in hand, you have to use it better than they did. And Crummie leaving the ball after him. Look how easy this is for Luke Meade. And I'm showing these examples. I'm at the end of this, I'd actually be quite positive overall about Dublin, because again, they did a lot of good things. So like defensively, Donoghue, O'Donnell, I thought they did loads of good things in the backs, running off the shoulder, fantastic. And look, even Power says, you know what, here is a better option for me inside. And then you got that result. So at the end, these all stack up in a tight game. And when you do things like that, like who can hit a crossfield sideline like that accurately? I thought that was class. And then again, unfortunately, Conor Burke ends up in a lot of these clips. Like, and you were saying before the show, like I think it was like 50% of his shots went into scores. But that's a pity, because his effect on the ball was huge and his possessions was through the roof. And to me, I'd be quite, and it's kind of counterintuitive, but I'd be quite optimistic about Dublin going into next year, because they've done well in the Leinster round robin. This is a team now that are building from a very low base. 2-3 years ago, even with Gavin, or not Jim Gavin. But
you won't play football, are they?
yeah, they were playing football. But they're building from a very low base. Mícheál came in, and I would have said they lost a number of key leaders. They're not dependent on the big players anymore. They're not dependent on. They're not dependent on the likes of Liam Rush. They're not dependent on the likes of even.
But even Sutcliffe and all these players, like they're not dependent on them.
They're not dependent. They're winning their own ball. They're able to defend. They're able to do, basically, like they were able to protect their goal against the most goal-hungry team in the country. I'd be positive. And when it comes to the decision making on where to shoot on the field, they were shooting from very far out in those clips. When they were working the ball through the hands, that's confidence on the shooting end. When you get into positions like Conor Burke was, like Brian Hayes was, that's confidence. And I think that comes for a team that sticks with it, that says, okay, what we've done is good. We had our last 2 games of the year, we didn't win. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Delete the Leinster final video and never look at it again. But the weekend against Cork, there's a lot to build on for me. And I think as a Dublin, if I was a Dublin supporter, Collie, our producer from Dublin, if I'm a Dublin supporter, I'm optimistic and I'm not going hard on this. Mícheál Donoghue may stay or may go for the next couple of years, but for me, the evidence is there that they can build on it if they're not wasteful. Like Cork got their scores easy, Dublin had to work hard for theirs, and to me, that was the difference on the end of the day.
But if you add in those couple of missed frees and you add in even like 25% of those ones that are missed, that are scored with frees, it's a very different game. Like there's only 5 points in it at the end.
Yeah.
So like the importance of your free taker, your shooting efficiency, all those things are really important. And it's at the stage we're at. Whereas like if that was the early few games, potentially like it mightn't have cost them that much.
Yeah. And I suppose what it says,
the
flip side, but the flip side of it then is, right, so Dublin, all those clips are Dublin wasting ball, but that was all Dublin on the ball. So what does that say about Cork, that Dublin were able to get on as much ball as they were, and still, I suppose for Cork, ultimately they didn't concede in those scenarios. But to me, they faced a challenge against Dublin that kind of made them think. And I think, again, it's a step up from the Offaly game, and they needed a step up, but it's only a stepping stone to the Limerick game. But I did pick out things for Cork that they did well, that this is now embedded. These are things that they want to keep doing, which is, against Dublin, they managed to, again, I feel like it was at their ease. And that's a good thing, because they didn't have to get high, they didn't have to get hyped up for this game. And it was a good team that they were playing against. But Shane Barrett gets Donoghue on his heels again, and just look the hop of the ball and the run, right? Look at this. This is a goal chance. How Hoggy doesn't just swing off his right, I don't know. But to me, they kept doing this. And the space they created between the full forward line and the half forward line, they've done this regularly. So they did it against Limerick. They've done it against Limerick, and Limerick are the most disciplined defensive team in the country. But they're creating that space, and they're doing it well. When the ball comes in here to Darragh Fitzgibbon, I pause it here, right? Because this was Dublin's tendency to break down the communication. So Donoghue doesn't know that he's got Grogan covering behind him. And he just says, I can't commit. But you have to commit on the best midfielder in the country. You can't leave Darragh Fitzgibbon hit that. But Darragh Fitzgibbon keeps popping up in those positions for scores. And here, Dublin knew Cork were going to do this, and Limerick know they're going to do this. But if you know they're going to do it, then you have to defend it. Like Barrett just says, he's just got a masterful delayed run on these. Like, it's not an accident that he keeps winning these. Like, over the course of the year, like his ability to time and win breaks has been phenomenal. And for Limerick,
his goal against Offaly, he was down the same channel, and he gets all the time.
And Decky Dalton had a great game the weekend. I think it's probably his best game for Cork, and he's probably one of the main reasons that Cork didn't come under more pressure than they did. But here, Brian Hayes has the ball. Look at the numbers: Connolly, Barrett, Luke Meade, Tim O'Mahony. Like, when Dublin did get the ball, this happened a number of times in the game, right? And even at Cork, and I say Cork are in third gear here for the game, but they did this really well, and they did it really well against Clare, where they were able to get numbers to ball that broke down in the middle of the field. They were the swarm we're talking about. They can do it, and they can do it well. Brian Hayes, beautiful step inside over the bar. But like, this is the kind of stuff that when they bring into the Limerick game, this is Cork. This is their identity, and they were able to do that at a steady pace. And they got out. They started making their subs after 50 minutes. 20 minutes left in the game, and they started emptying the bench. And all my positive points about Dublin stand, but it's a good sign of Cork that they can do that easily. Facing into a game now, they get 2 weeks to compose themselves and create. Again, they're going to have to have something different. They're going to have a little bit of an emphasis on. You can't rinse and repeat what they did in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. No. They can't do it because it won't work twice. There's no way Kinnerk and John Kiley will allow that to work twice. So
the obvious thing that Cork did was they overloaded on the one side where Decky Doyle great success of it. So how do Limerick resolve that issue?
But remember, so in terms of actually Limerick defending it, I'm convinced that you'll have Kyle Hayes come to centre, and you'll have Declan Hannon move over. I don't think they won't stay that static, and they shouldn't anyway. Because even in conventional overloads, you're supposed to move. It's just that your centre back doesn't completely leave the centre. But I see that happening. Like, so if Harnedy disappears from Kyle Hayes' side and goes over to Dermot Burns, well then, you obviously have to have a shift over. Plus, you will not see Will O'Donoghue that far away from the puck out the next day, or whether it's if they got Darragh Donovan's fit now, whether he was on the panel for the Munster final, which is super. But it's going to be very hard to shift someone out of midfield. It's bizarre to say that Cian Lynch is the least form player in the front eight for Limerick. It's wild to say it. But to me, that's how they'll treat that puck out, which means that Cork will have to do it sparingly, because the time to do something different is not the start of the game. Everybody has their video analysis done.
And that's what matters.
Yeah. And they did it at the start. Yeah, everybody's their video analysis done. Everybody has seen what the other team is doing, and it's in the first 10 minutes that all the plans happen.
Yeah.
And after that, then it's the flow. So if Cork were coming with something different, 10, 15 minutes into the game to bang it in would be the thing to do.
Yeah. So the obvious question here, we have 2 players on 699.
Is Huggy's level? I thought Huggy pulled clear. Oh, he's level with TJ.
Both of them are level. Wow. So you're going to call it here first. Who's going to end the season on more points?
Never mind the season. Both of these boys are playing into their 40s, I'd say, by the looks of it. It's unreal. Isn't it brilliant? Because we were talking we got Huggy come into our post game breakdown in Tullamore, and Grania asked him, "Is it important?" I loved it, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't even think about it." How do you not? Like, it has to think about it. One of these boys is not retiring until the other does, and it's hilarious. Like it's, but it shows to me, right? Because can you remember the conversation around Huggy after the first 2 games of the year? What was the conversation? What was the conversation about Huggy?
Incredibly negative.
Incredibly negative. He's had it. Give someone else a chance. Get somebody else in there. And like, I'm not going to, like, I was one of them. I was like, Genie Mac, maybe they need to try somebody different, because it's not happening. It didn't happen in Walsh Park, and it didn't happen against Clare in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. What he's produced since has been incredible, because I thought once TJ broke Clare last year in the scoring record, I thought that was it. What the 2 of them have managed to achieve this year, both of them in their 36th year, like, it's just fantastic. It's unbelievable.
And the key thing here is, I suppose, that TJ gets the opportunity to go first. You know, is
that what we're at?
He sets the tune against Clare, you know. So I'm sure Hoggy will be watching that match with a bit of interest, just because he wants to break the 700, but also break TJ's record, whatever it is, the following day. So that's definitely a conversation, I'd say.
Yeah. I don't know. It's guess I can hear Owen Kelly and Joe Canning wishing they had the round robin earlier in their careers, so they could rack up the scores.
Well, do you know what? They have 699 more points than me and 698 more points than you. So, like, you won point, yeah?
I have more, but I won for cornerback. But I played all over the map, Nolly. They didn't know what to do.
Yeah. And do you know what? If there was ever a time to wrap up, that is a time. Because we were definitely not going to go down that path.
Yeah, let's not talk about us scoring,
So we obviously have a week's break next week, so people will have a bit of rest from looking at the both of us. That say they're very, very happy, and also obviously very happy to realize that we've only 2 more episodes left to watch us. Okay,
that's
so
sad.
That's sad.
It's coming so. Sure,
with withdrawal symptoms early. So with that in mind, listen, thanks as always, Séamus, very insightful, and looking forward to catching up with you in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, I have my Limerick jersey on then.
Okay. I'm still waiting. I don't know, did you see it on the Instagram post? Katie,
I saw it.
Has the picture of I was wondering where my t-shirt is gone. It looks so good. And they're on sales if anybody wants them. They contact direct message or whatever they do to social media. Gaago, to Collie or to Katie, and they'll get them out to you on the express service with on post. So thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.